Hello everyone, this is Bart Coppens and today I'm going to answer one of the questions that people ask me the most frequently. What is the biggest species of moth in the entire world? And here you have your answer. Currently we are at the Natural History Museum of Rotterdam and I am the conservator of the insect collection, and I'm holding a specimen of Thysania agrippina, also known as the white witch moth. And this species is the largest species of moth in the world. If you're wondering what its wingspan is, they can be up to 30 centimeters, that's 300 millimeters, although males are significantly smaller than the females. And this moth has been an enigma to entomologists for centuries, because despite the fact that this is the biggest moth species in the entire world, its entire biology and life cycle is completely unknown to science. And this has frustrated people like me who study butterflies and moths, because of course it's the biggest species of moth in the world. But we don't know its biology. And I hope in this video I will share with you some details, what we know of this enigma. Okay, so first of all let me tell you why it is such a big secret and what we can do to solve this. But before we start, I want to make you aware of the fact there is a cash money reward for the first person who can rear the caterpillars. Here, let me show you a pamphlet of the White Witch Watch, which is a group of scientists that are dedicated to studying this species. Let's check it out. Did you see it? That's $750 cash reward for the first person who can rear these caterpillars on their appropriate food plant. If you live in South America and you are interested in doing some entomological research and making money in the process, give it a try. Okay, so we got that out of the way. I just had to share it with all of you viewers to motivate you to help if you are ever in the native range of this moth and want to contribute something awesome. So now I'm going to tell you everything there is to know about the white witch moth and why until today its life cycle has remained a mystery. First of all, what's very noticeable is how massive the range is of Thysania agrippina. And with the range I mean the amount of countries where it's been recorded. You can find Thysania agrippina in Central America. You can find it in Costa Rica, Mexico, Panama, but also South America, I think Ecuador, Brazil, Colombia, parts of Argentina, I believe. Basically, if you look at the content of America, it's covering almost all of South America and Central America. And vagrants, although very rare, have also been reported in North America. Very rarely one of these moths turn up even in Texas and Florida. Now it's presumed that the moths cannot reproduce here, but it demonstrates something very important in this mystery. And that's the fact that these moths are probably excellent migrants. Now this makes it much more difficult to pinpoint the food plant, because imagine that these moths are locally breeding, okay, that they have some certain localities where they reproduce, but they are excellent migrants that migrate all over the continent of South America. Well, basically because of this data it will be extremely difficult to pinpoint the certain localities where they reproduce. And it's the same with other nomadic species. For example, take the Urania fulgens, okay? It's like this tropical swallowtail type of moth that's famous for its migrations with millions and millions of individuals. Now, what's interesting is these Urania fulgens only have a few localities where they actually breed, right? They're called reproductive habitat or whatever. This habitat has their food plant, Omphalea, which is their single and only food plant. However, because these habitats are isolated and small, they also migrate between these, basically these reproductive areas. But if you look at the data, you will see a much bigger range of this moth on the map than the places where they will actually reproduce. Now this may be going on with Thysania agrippina, but only the extreme version of it, because They think these moths, they can live for several months time or even longer. And they, if you look at their body, their morphology with their extremely large wings, it becomes apparent that, well, if they are supported by the wind, they can probably sail for a very long time, you know, over massive distances. They can cross oceans. Maybe they can go from South America to North America. I mean, like from the coast of Suriname to Florida, maybe. If they're strong, if they're assisted by a strong wind, who knows where they may end up. And this is evident because some specimens have been found in Florida and Texas, which is basically way out of their normal habitat and normal distribution. So that's one part of the problem. Second part of the problem is the fact, well, the reason their host plant hasn't been found is because it's been suspected they are canopy species. And this makes sense because the majority of all the specimens that have ever been found are males, and females are considered to be rare. Females have been found, of course, but they are much more rare than the males. And why is this? Think about it. And the reason is probably that females, they hide in the canopy, right? The canopy means basically the treetops. Now, some of you may be saying, so go ahead and check the treetops. Well, we're talking about the rainforest here, right? So the canopy may be up to 15 or 20 meters high, okay? And if there are a few particular plants in here that they're laying eggs on and feeding on, then you're gonna have a problem, because in the Amazon rainforest there are literally thousands and thousands species of plants. I mean, if you live in the United Kingdom or the Netherlands, in the Amazon rainforest, there are probably more species of plants in 1 square mile of rainforest than there are in the entirety of your own country. So try to wrap your head around this. Alright, and it's been evident that when very strong winds have been blowing, for example, there has been a storm, then these moths become more common, and also females are reported more frequently. This is probably because, well, the wind blows them out of the treetops, right? Where the species most likely resides most of the time. So this makes their food plant not only a mystery, but it makes it very hard to figure it out, right? Imagine if there's like one canopy type of plant, then we're gonna have a really terribly difficult time to figure this out. And for example, they have tried GPS tracking these moths and several other methods, but so far the host plant has never been found, nor the caterpillars or the cocoons. There exists one drawing of Marian Sibylla Merian, which was a famous entomologist from Suriname, and she drew this. However, the image has been known as a fake. Well, not really a fake. It was just a mistake she made, because obviously the caterpillar on there is a species of hawk moth, Sphingidae. And she probably confused it for the larval stage of the white witch. But sorry, Maria, you are wrong. So there. However, despite the fact that we have no data whatsoever on the food plants of this moth, we do have a clue about what the food plants may potentially be. And these are woody plants in the family of legumes, or Fabaceae, or Leguminosae, whatever scientific name you like to use for this family. They're family of clover and pea and inga. And in the tropics there are also woody types of plants. Now, how do we know this? Because we have never known the food plant of this moth, and yet we have a theory about what they feed on. Well, Thysania agrippina also has a few relatives. And the relatives of this moth may help explain the mystery of its ecology. Here in this box I've prepared 2 other specimens. So let's place the Thysania agrippina here. And here we see 2 other Thysania species. This is the Thysania zenobia. As you can tell, they're in the same genus as Thysania agrippina. However, they're significantly smaller. So let's place them here. So here we have Thysania agrippina. And here we have Thysania zenobia. Now they look quite similar. and their biology is probably also quite similar. And that's why they're important to study if we want to find out all the secrets about Thysania agrippina. We should look at some of their closest family members. If you wonder why, let me tell you why. The secret to the answer to this secret is in the relatives of this moth. You see, Thysania agrippina has a few well-known relatives. For example, take Thysania zenobia, right? These moths, they feed on particular plants. And in the case of Thysania zenobia, they feed on senna and cassia, which are two types of woody Fabaceae. Also, if we take a look at more distant relatives like the black witch moth, Ascaphala odorata, we'll see they feed on things like acacia, robinia, which are also woody Fabaceae. And it becomes very apparent that most of the moths in this family prefer these types of plants. So it's not only unthinkable that the white witch also uses these kinds of plants, it's actually very probable, right? Because if we look at the biology of Lepidoptera, you will see that most of the time families and groups and genera of moths tend to specialize on the same types of food. Take for example the genus Pyrrhus, the cabbage butterflies, right? If you look throughout this genus, you will see most of them use different types of Brassicacea as their food plants. So if a new species were to be discovered somewhere in Europe, that's in the genus Pyrrhus, that really looks like our own cabbage white butterflies, but it's found somewhere in a remote spot in a mountain. And you can probably assume that they will also feed on the same kinds of plants. That's the first place where you will look. Of course, you cannot prove it, however, it's very probable. So this is why Thysania agrippina will for a long time probably remain a mystery. Because of its extremely wide distribution and their ability to migrate, which distorts all the data because we don't know where they're breeding. They're found all over the continent in South America and Central America. So if there are a few very local populations that breed and they migrate over all the other countries, then well, it's going to be extremely hard, right? Second of all, the problem is the canopy, the fact that they are probably a canopy species that remains very well hidden from the reach of scientists unless you're willing to climb up the treetops and still look for a needle in a haystack somewhere about 15 to 20 meters above the ground. You're gonna have a big problem here. You get it? Are you trying to understand it? Because this is really one of the biggest mysteries to me in entomology, because it's such an extremely common species. I mean, some countries, if you put up fruit, try it in the Amazon rainforest, some fermenting fruits, and the moths, they will come visit to feed. I mean, they're not at all that rare. I mean, it's considered to be a common species, although they usually fly in low densities, but that's okay. You won't see thousands of them at the same time, but you know, it's not a rare encounter. That's strange. And the fact they are encountered in so many places across the world, on the continent of America, really makes it extremely, you know, fascinating. The fact that we don't know anything about their biology, you know, but I think it's a good thing. We need some mystery. And this is also where the potential for breeding them is. Because, of course, when you breed the moth, you will see all its early life stages and the types of plants it likes to feed on. And this is my specialism because, well, I'm a hobbyist that breeds a lot of moths. But by doing so, I've also discovered a few things that are new to science. The same way, actually, I use the same method. I look at what the relatives of the moth eat and if there are any plants in my area from this family and if I can feed it to the larvae and if they will accept it. And if they do, you will get a general idea of their biology. Of course, it's not 100% representative of the situation in the wild, but it's something. It's an indicator, right? Now, well, that's basically the entire point of my video. I hope you understood the point that I was trying to convey here, and to have answered all the questions about the white witch moth. Last but not least, we don't know how long these moths can live, but scientists think they are very long-lived, and that data, that idea is simply deduced from the large distances they are able to migrate, right? I mean, if a moth can migrate from South America to Central America to even Texas, right? And it means it has a long journey, and being able to travel for such a long distance means it has to live for a long time. and they suspect that they probably can live up to 3 to 6 months, maybe. 6 months would be a little bit extreme, but who knows, right? It's unconfirmed. It's also, well, no, I don't know. I can imagine it a little bit. I mean, they're very large moths. They're able to feed. They have a functioning mouth parts. So these Erebidae, they can last for a long time. For example, on my YouTube channel, you will see me. For example, I had like these fruit piercing moths from Japan, Elusive tyrannus, and they lived for 3 months. And I also had these Catocala relatives from Japan. I believe they're called Arcticurula. I recently posted a video about them, and they're currently 2 months old and still alive, right? So if moths like these can become this old, I think a big one like Thysania agrippina, well, it could last for a while. I mean, if it's not damaged or attacked by anything, yeah. I think there's a reasonable suspicion in this, although we cannot confirm it unless we basically test it. But yeah. That's basically everything I wanted to say. Check out the website of the White Witch Watch. God, that's so difficult to pronounce if you're Dutch. The White Witch Watch. White Witch Watch. It's a website of a team of scientists that are dedicated to studying the biology of the White Witch. So that's going to be something interesting for all of you entomologists to check out. I'll put up the link in the description and the comments. Okay. So thanks for watching. Until next time. Now, some of you may start to argue with me and comment under this video that Thysania agrippina is not the biggest species of moth in the world. And some of you may suggest alternatives such as the Hercules moth or the Atlas moth or Queen Alexandra's birdwing, which are respectively also very big species of moths. However, it's undoubtedly that Thysania agrippina is the biggest species of moth in the world. And to prove that, I have some other oriental species here that are often claimed to be one of the biggest species of moths. And the reason that this discussion is everlasting is because there are several ways that you can judge the size of a moth. So let's see how the Thysania agrippina, the white witch, compares to the Atlas moth. So if we take a look, by appearance the Atlas moth, it looks much bigger, and I would argue that actually it is bigger maybe. However, if we compare the wingspan, which is the total length of the wings, to the white witch, then you will see that the white witch is longer than the Atlas moth. See, let's place it upside down. If I place it like this, now you're able to see that the wingspan of the Thysania agrippina defeats the size of the Atlas moth. The reason that the Atlas moth, however, looks bigger is because there are, like I said, there are several ways that you can judge the size of a moth. And the Atlas moth has a very large surface area of the wings. That means the wings are very broad and they cover a very large surface. Thysania agrippina, however, has very long and thin wings. However, officially, if you want to judge the size of a moth, we only look at wingspan. The wingspan is the total length from the wingtip to the other wingtip. When the moths are prepared in an official position, where the wings are prepared in about a wing angle of, I believe it's 90 degrees, I'm not entirely sure. But that's how you officially measure moths. You pin them like this, you mount them, and you measure the wingspan from tip to tip. And if we measure the Atlas moth or other big ones like birdwing butterflies, then you will find that it's out of the question that Thysania agrippina is the biggest moth on Earth. However, if you would argue other things like wing surface area, then I would agree it's not the biggest. Now, if you live in North America, Central America, or South America, you may have found many relatives of this huge moth. And here we have a drawer full of them. They belong to a group called the witch moths. And the witch moths are, well, technically you could call them a subfamily of the Arabidae. They are the Arabinae. And for example, to the witch moth belong species like these. This is what we call the black witch moth, Ascaphala odorata, which can be quite common in the tropics, in the Caribbean, even in places like Florida, Texas, but mostly South America and tropical environments. And as you can see, most of these guys are actually not as big as the Thysania agrippina. I mean, I would argue they are big. They are big, right? But they are not the giants like the white witch. I mean, let's take a little comparison, okay? Here's a specimen of the white witch moth. So, compared to the other relatives it has, there's not really much that comes close to this giant. But it's interesting to see. For example, here we have some lattice species. I believe they're things like lattice buteo, things that are common. I mean, if you live in Costa Rica or Mexico or wherever, you probably see these things quite often. I say probably because it also depends where you live. But yeah, it's a really fascinating species. Thanks for watching, everyone. And if you liked this video and would like to see more content like this, I would say like, subscribe and consider donating. I have a lot of cool stuff coming up. Thanks, and until next time.